Welcome to the call today. I want to open the floor up to ask you guys, because I'm sure, because it's been 30 days since the last time we spoke. So if you guys have questions in the chat, burning things, decisions that are impending, things you are unsure about, strategies that you need to validate, or even just a verbal high five, please put it in the chat, and then I'll go them from top to bottom. Jason, bring you on a business partner. Don't do it, and go ahead.
So I've had this business for over a decade, and lead gen's it's always been my weakest function.
Okay.
And I'm more
Can I pause you real quick?
What's that?
Can I pause you real quick on that one point? How many hours a day do you spend working on lead gen?
Not a lot, because I get caught up in other stuff. Yeah. So
you're thinking about doing a partnership with Kyle, and you're making the consideration you want to know the decision process. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to know if it was a good idea, which I know there's risks involved. So then I'm like, what are the risks and what consideration? I'm meeting with Elizabeth Morgan this evening to bring up my concerns, but I wanted to get your feedback because you've probably seen a lot. I've
had 8 failed partnerships, so I know nothing about this. Is you have to have talk about all the ugly shit first.
Yeah.
Right. So right now you guys are in lust, right? You guys are like making out, getting, having sales sex, and just like things are amazing, right? You don't want to have the really ugly, like, how are we going to split up alimony if we get divorced later conversation.
When you don't exit strategy, all that.
Yeah. So like, that's what has to get defined. And you now could define roles and responsibilities. The only reason to have a partner is if they have skills you do not have, or they have money you don't have, or they have time you don't have. If you're on the flip side, like you have money and they have time, right? So that's where partnerships are useful. The number one way most people do partnerships, though, is like, hey, I'm cool, you're cool, we love the same thing, let's go into business together, which is a terrible way to do a partnership, because one of you is not necessary, right? And you're just diluting your equity. That being said, are you looking on doing a true partnership, or are you looking on doing like a minority type deal?
I would always maintain a majority, and it would be a scaling, my company's an S Corp. So he would basically get a piece of the company as he helps me hit certain $1 million milestones, to the point of max, maybe like a third of the company.
Okay. Well, that's different. That's more like a performance-based relationship with kickers. I would structure it as phantom equity.
Which means what?
So it's equity that doesn't actually vest unless there is a sale. And if he were to leave, then he doesn't get the equity. And so you can pair those two things together. So you can do like equity with profit sharing. And so that would be probably how I would structure it. Either profit share or rev share, depending on, how you negotiate it.
Okay. Got it.
But just as a side note for everyone on here, like, I remember I had a mentor really early on. He's like, and I was taking on all these partners left and right because I didn't know what I was doing. And he's like, listen, you're going to need an accountant. He's like, you just pay the accountant. He's like, he's not a partner in my business. He's like, I just pay an accountant, right? So it's like, just because you have a need doesn't mean they have to be equity owner, right? There's plenty of companies that are owned by people who are not lead generation specialists. So I think if it were me, I'd probably try and set up a really lucrative relationship that isn't necessarily a partnership. So I'd say, like, it's pay per or a percentage of something to that extent, right? I don't know if you're ever planning on selling, because the only reason someone would ever want equity is if they want control, or they want to be able to make money on an exit. It's the only two reasons you want equity. Otherwise, equity sucks, because then you just have liability, which blows. So unless he wants control, which I don't think he does, and unless you think you're going to sell, which I don't think you are, or I don't think you want to, just you've been doing it for a decade, unless you're just sick and tired of it, but I don't get that impression.
No.
Right. So then the only thing that he should want, or that you should probably negotiate for, is the stuff that he wants, which is a percentage of revenue or a percentage of profit based on XYZ. So I think that's what you should. I don't think you need to make this an equity partnership at all. I think you just need an agreement.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You just need a performance agreement. This is like standard. There's tons of e-commerce companies that, like, they take 10% of top line from sales attributed to the marketing that they make, and they're full service. They don't have equity in the company, but they get a percentage of revenue.
Got it. Yeah, I guess I have to see or talk to Kyle and figure out like why would equity matter to him? Because
Yeah, I bet. Like, just say,
really
what do you
relying on
want?
the exit or control. But
Right. Just ask, what do you want? He's probably gonna say, I want to participate in the upside. Cool. What specifically? Because if it's a sale, I'm not going to sell. So what specifically? Well, I want a piece. I want a piece of what I'm bringing in. Cool. So then let's do it based on do X or Y. For you, it'd be advantageous to do a profit share. For him, it'd be advantageous to do a rev share. It's up to you.
right. Okay, that makes sense. And the next question looks like it's relevant.
Peter's?
Like the exit.
Okay, so Peter, this is for you. How to sever ties with a business partner and best practices go separate ways. So it depends on whether you have a kid or not, right? And how good looking the kid is and how much money the kid makes, right? And so you guys have a business. If the business isn't making a ton of money, then most of these times you can just be like, hey man, like why don't we just both fuck off and go our separate ways?
It's even worse
So,
than that. The business isn't making any money and has debt that needs to be paid off.
so then you can just, I mean, then at that point you should just split the debt if you want to. If you like, you can split the debt, or you can. Is this an LLC that you are ending, or is this in general?
So the way the business is set up is it is an LLC, and then I have obviously my own agency. So the idea was to use my agency to generate sales to then pay the debt of the other LLC back.
Right.
However, I'm responsible for the back end. He's responsible for the front end, like the sales.
Yeah.
The last 6 months, he hasn't really brought in any sales. So now that I'm selling and doing everything,
yeah,
exactly, it becomes a point of like, okay, this debt is 50-50. However, if I'm doing 100% of the work, why should I also pay 100% of the debt and fulfill the product and do everything else on the back end?
Yeah. I mean,
so I'm trying to figure out like how to rip that Band-Aid off and say, let's go.
So easiest way to have hard conversations is just ask the questions that you ask here. So like literally the biggest hack in all of relationships is the way that you talk shit about someone behind their back is literally what you should just tell them. So it's like, hey man, you said that you were going to do all the sales and I was going to do the back end. Well, you're not doing the sales, but we're still both responsible for this thing. So what do you think's fair? You'll have what you have in mind, but a lot of times people who once you present the information like that will be like, ah, fuck, you're right. They're like, so what do you think's fair? It's like, well, you should just take the business and I guess I can try and start paying off my share over time. And you're like, cool, that's what I was thinking too. Let's sign these. That way the thing's dissolved and then you transfer your equity to me and you have a note back to me for 50% of the debt.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can Google promissory note template, 1 page. It's just like from borrower to lender, no interest, X amount by this, paid by this date in this increment. Like what happens if they default? And that's it. Like it's a very simple, like I've done $1 million loans on 1 page. Like they hold up. And you're in real estate, so you should find plenty of promissory notes that are simple.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So there's the equity.
That's to our investors or to our lenders, right? So I want to make sure like.
So this is the equity and the debt. So there's 2 pieces, right? The equity, you just say, hey, I own 100% of this company. You're giving your shares to me because you're not doing shit, right? That's number 1. Or we dissolve the company, I create a new entity. I'd prefer to save $300. It's up to you, right? The thing is you could do that right now. It doesn't like, and you could just say like, I don't really give a shit. If you sign this and it saves me $300, like this is not really a discussion because there's nothing here, right? The second piece is okay. Now that we've dealt with the equity piece, now let's deal with the debt piece, right? And so the debt piece, this is what we both owe. This is what we agreed on. This is what I will do, and this is the promissory note that you can write, or we can both sign together towards the lenders.
Okay.
Make sense? And then you're done.
Yeah, and then as far as his involvement in my agency, he can quote unquote sell my product and earn a commission and do whatever he seems with it or not. Because that's the other, tricky part is he's also involved in my agency, but more so because
neither of you guys are making any money. So it's not like he's gonna start making money now.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm thinking as well.
Yeah,
Just
it's like let's
go.
not obsess about the fact that it's like, what if he gets rich on my product? Because he wasn't getting rich on your fucking product for the last 2 years. So like, I don't think it's gonna start now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, my thing was like, I want him to pull some sales in for us to actually sell the product, because then we would actually pay the other thing
And that's
off.
fine. Then I would say, and on top of this, I'll still continue to give you the thing. You can still sell it, and we split the revenue, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool. Sweet.